This is the state of Massachusetts, divided up into all the towns and cities. It's one of those COVID testing map things. Um, this video is about how would a state like this get divided for representation? How do you make a republic? How do you pick like which leaders you're going to have? Because if you do one from like every city and town, that's going to be a huge number of people. That's like 365, 375 or something. That's going to be a problem. That's a lot. So, and that's not how it works. And that's not how we decide who goes to Washington, D.C. to represent us. Newton doesn't get its own person. So this is where we get to something called election districts. And what I have here, this is how for the state senate, which is part of the state government, there are 40. So just take my word for it. There are 40 of these like squiggly things here. How does this happen? Why are they these weird funky shapes? Why aren't they all the same size? That's what I'm going to help you understand in this video here. So here's another one. This is for how it's decided about sending to Congress. How many to Washington, D.C.? So there are 9. You can count them for yourself. There are 9 of them. Again, they're different sizes, different shapes. What the heck, all right? So Newton, if you live in Newton, you are in the top part of number 4 of that purple one. I live in Waltham, just over the border. I'm in that reddish purple one. I'm in District 5. So I send a different, there's a different person I'd be voting for than adults in Newton and the rest of District 4. So that's kind of how this works out. Each district is sending a different representative. And in each of these, even the different sizes, there's about 700,000 people living in there, men, women, children, living in these each of these districts. In this one, there are fewer. Wait, why does that work? There's the same number of people in Massachusetts. So why would these be different? Because there are more of these districts. There are 40 of them, remember? So they're smaller, so there's not as many people in them. So each state senator is representing about 175,000 people. Okay. Now, one thing you need to know is it wasn't always this way. This map here, this is how things were up until about 2010. About 2010, there were actually one more representative getting sent from Massachusetts. But things changed. Massachusetts doesn't have as many people compared to the rest of the country as it used to. So these lines had to get changed. Whoa! Wait, who gets to decide? Who draws these lines? Who gets to decide how all these and like those other ones, the state senate one, who decides who draws these lines? Who do you think? Who should be able to do it? Well, the answer is the state government. This is the State House in Boston. These are some of those state senators and representatives. They draw the lines. And I'll let you think about whether you think that makes sense or if that's fair. But that's how it works in Massachusetts. Let's look at Newton before I wrap up here. So here's like a bird's eye view of Newton, if you could like fly above Newton and if they'd actually written out the roads and borders and things. Never mind. It's not about a bird. So here's a weirder map you've probably never seen here. There are election districts in Newton for Newton city government. And it depends on the little colors here. So if you look real close, each shape there has a number and a slash and another number. The number on the left is the ward. Okay, there are 8 wards in Newton, and each ward has a different local representative, different local rep. Think of like Jeremy Jam on Parks and Rec. If you don't know who I'm talking about because you don't watch Parks and Rec, that's just sad for you. I'm sorry, you don't get the joke. Oh well. Any local rep, so there are 8 local representatives in the city council, 1 per ward. So each area you live in Newton gets represented. Now the precincts are about voting. Okay, this is a different kind of election district. So there are 4 in each of these, and that's just for polling places. That's where the voting actually happens. So way up there, that hot pink one, 1/2, precinct 2 in Newton, that's where in Bigelow, that's a polling place. So for that precinct right there, because there's not enough room. You can't fit everyone from every ward into one polling place. You'd have big long lines, even longer lines than usual. That would be a problem. So that's why we have precincts. But again, like if you follow the shapes, like the or like the yellow one here, like Ward 7, okay, there are 4 different ones of those precincts where it's divided up, but they all have the same local rep. Hopefully not Jeremy Jam, some other for city council or for a school committee. So each ward. So you got like each part of the city is getting represented. That's really what you're trying to get with districts. Okay, so like if we go all the way back to like the ones here, right? Like so each Senate in the Senate, you're getting people from like all over the state representing. You don't want people all from like Boston, for example. That wouldn't quite work out. All right. So who draws the lines in Newton? It's complicated. I don't want to get into it. You don't really care. Or maybe you do care. We'll get into it later. Because it's kind of different and it's kind of unique to Newton. Um, but the one thing you got to get here, you got to understand for election districts, if it's about Newton's wards or the state Senate in Massachusetts or deciding who goes to Washington, D.C., each district for those things in each of these maps has about an equal population. And maybe you remember the numbers I gave you before for Massachusetts. So it's about equal, not exactly, but every man, woman, child, not counting voters, but counting just people, so that each representative is there speaking for about the same number of people. That's how our republic works.